I have to admit, even though I'm pretty much what you'd call a car fanatic, I had no idea this car even existed. Now, obviously, it's a Mercedes E-Class Coupe, but it's what powers it that is very odd indeed. Let's get into it then. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. We're on Instagram, so if you want to see our latest and greatest stock, daily updates and behind the scenes footage, click the link in the description to follow us now. This is a Mercedes E350. No, it's not a 6-cylinder diesel, nor is it a 6-cylinder petrol. This is an E350 with a 2-litre, 4-cylinder mild hybrid engine. An E350 with a 2-litre engine. Sacrilege! Don't worry though, this is a 299 horsepower 2-litre engine, which when combined with the EQ boost system makes for a fairly potent package. Theoretically, the electric motor should fill in any missing torque low down, whilst the turbo spools to bring in the power up top. How it works and how it drives we'll see later, but for now, let's see how it flies and do the 30 to 70 sprint. Well, the numbers certainly don't lie. This thing is quick. Like, actually quick. It beat the Mark III Ford Focus RS, a GLE 43 AMG, and a Stage 1 Focus ST. We managed 5.07 seconds, which puts it just behind the B58-powered X640i, and only 0.5 seconds behind a Mercedes A35 AMG, a dedicated hot hatch. Not bad when you consider the interior. Talking interiors, let's look at this one because it is special. Dual high-resolution screens, unique wood trim and enough ambient lighting to impress even the most avid PC gamer make this a pretty impressive thing to look at. Thankfully, it's easy to use as well, as whilst there's certainly a lot of tech, you still have the good old scroll wheel in the middle of the centre console. Moving to the back, you'll find what I'd call an adequate amount of room for short journeys. Legroom is fine for anyone under 6 foot, but headroom is pretty subpar due to the sloping roofline. Fine for kids, but I wouldn't want to spend hours back here. The boot, however, is more than adequate. Even with the seats up, you get a very sizable area even for a couple of golf bags or a weekend away. Fold the seats down and even a 60-inch TV will squeeze in. Okay then, let's see if this 2-litre E350 can deliver the goods. See how we deal with the bump here. Very nice. My God, it's so controlled. Let's give it some. Whee! Just listen to this boot closing. It's just so solid. Wow, lots of front end grip. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, it is nice to be back in one of these E-Class coupes. I say that because the seats in this car are probably some of the best in the game. Seating position is nice and low. It's got so much adjustment you can have with the seat. Like, you even control your headrest electronically, and you can move it forwards and backwards as well. Then you come to speed bumps around town. The suspension feels like it's in the distance. It's doing its job and it's staying out the way. You're just there to be coddled in the interior of this car. And it really does coddle you. It is unbelievably smooth to drive. This is the thing. So, like, the C-Class is a very good car. The E-Class is a very good car. But the E-Class Coupe, I don't know if it's just because of the body shape, but it just feels like a more luxurious experience. It's like going from the S-Class to the S-Class Coupe. Like, fundamentally, they're pretty similar cars, but the S-Class Coupe just feels that little extra bit special. And same with the C-Class, it just feels a little bit more special than the saloon car does. Steering's nice and light in comfort mode. And it's just a big, comfy barge. It is a really nice car to sit in and to just munch miles in. Starting off in comfort mode, of course, because I mean that's the mode you're going to spend most of your time in. And it is wonderful. Got my heated seat on, got ambient lighting changing colours constantly. The only thing I'm really missing is a heads-up display, actually. I kind of feel like with all this tech and like these two huge screens, I'd kind of like a heads-up display as well. But yeah, suspension over bumps is very comfortable. Not adaptive dampers, but it's basically perfectly set up for what this car is meant for, really. Brakes are nice and solid. Accelerator is very predictable. Throttle mapping is good. And the EQ boost system is actually pretty decent. So of course you've got that electric motor that's giving you a little bit of a kick blowdown, and it kind of does make it feel like a bigger engine than it actually is. Of course there's like a tiny gap sort of at around 1800 RPM where you can feel the turbo spooling up, but it gives you enough power that you're not really feeling like you want more. Anyway, in terms of parking, we've got a nice 360 camera on this car. Got lines telling you where you're going to go. One thing about this reverse camera is that it's insanely high resolution as well compared to most other cars, and it just means you can see a bit more detail, especially at night, and that's quite important. And you'll notice once we're in the parking space, this car is big, but it's not too big. The only issue is if you're in slightly tighter spaces, getting out can be a bit difficult because these doors are just huge. So just keep that in mind if you're driving around a town like London. Right, let's crack on. It's just such a smooth car to drive. Even with a 2-litre engine, it feels very smooth. Now, we reviewed a Mercedes E300, which had the lower powered version of this engine, and it was actually quite a good fun car to drive and felt pretty nippy, so it's going to be interesting to see how much better this one is. Right, half throttle out of a junction, give it a bit of welly, and yes, see look, it didn't even go over 4,000 RPM there, and it got us up to 30 miles an hour perfectly quick enough. Pretty decent power, I'd say. And that EQ boost system, it just starts the engine instantly. See, it's just instant. You're not waiting for the car to sort of get ready to go once you press the throttle. It just goes. And I have to say, I think that's actually the biggest advantage with this sort of mild hybrid system. Is yeah, it gives you a tiny bit more power. It's like only just noticeable if you're really looking for it, but it's the way the car responds when you give it an input is what makes a big difference. Now, something like an older Mercedes with start-stop, when it turns the engine off, you put your foot on the accelerator and you hear it go and then it starts after about 2 seconds, and you think, like, if you're trying to pull out of a junction, that's 2 seconds too many, really. You want to just go, especially if you see a smaller gap. Right, let's reset our trip computer and see what MPG we can get on the motorway. On the combined cycle, it says you'll get just over 40 miles per gallon in this thing, which I think is a pretty conservative figure. I think we can do better than that. On the extra urban cycle, it says you'll get 51 miles per gallon. Now that is a pretty impressive figure, so if we can get that, I would be pretty pleased. But it is quite a big car. Not that heavy, but it is big. And it's got to move a lot of air around it. So, yeah. Before we do that though, let's take it to a roundabout and see if that extra 50-ish horsepower over the E300 makes a difference. By the way, if you want to watch that review, I will put a link in the top right hand corner for you. Into Sports Plus, changes down a couple of gears, throttle mapping changes to where even a millimetre of input gives you basically full throttle. And I can take control of the gears myself if I want to. And this 9-speed gearbox does a pretty good job of it, actually. Missing a bit of a V6 sound there though. Right, let's give it some. Bit of AMG sound there. And it pushes you out the corners nicely. You know, lets you have a little bit of fun, but not too crazy. It's a GT car after all. But the power is certainly there. I mean, this feels pretty similar to something like a Mercedes A35. And that's like a sort of dedicated hot hatch, so it's pretty nippy. But I love that EQ boost, just gives you that instant response. And I can hear that they've kind of tuned that fake engine noise to sound like quite a futuristic 2-litre engine. Quite interesting. Anyway, before we go through too much fuel, let's go into Eco and do what this car is made for, and that is munching miles on the motorway. Now, this is where you really notice the EQ boost system. So the engine's off now, as I'm coming onto the motorway, and I just give it a little bit of throttle, and it just picks up speed effortlessly. That's what you want from a big coupe like this. That's where those big engines have always been really good. They're just effortless because they're not having to put in a lot of work to keep the car moving. Like changing lanes again, it just picks up speed actually pretty quickly, and you know, not even going above 3,000 RPM. So it feels, again, like a much bigger engine than it actually is. Anyway, road noise and wind noise, big coupe, very comfortable, almost no road noise. The wheels are so far away from you that even though that they're big, you don't hear them at all. Wind noise is pretty low as well. Although, having said that, I notice a tiny bit of wind noise at like 70 miles an hour, and then it seems to go away as you get faster, which is a bit weird. But yeah, fundamentally a very quiet car to travel in. Then visibility, being a coupe, I mean, you've got no B pillars, so visibility is actually really good, and you're sitting nice and low. It's just a point car to travel in on the motorway. You can destroy miles in this thing. Anyway, talking about destroying miles, we're going to do about 15 to 20 miles on the motorway and see what MPG figure we get. I will see you in about 20 minutes time. Well, I can't lie, I'm actually really impressed with this car. Not once when I went up a hill did it downshift a gear. And look at that MPG figure, 48.7 miles per gallon of quite a big car with a pretty small 2-litre engine. It does seem that like 300 horsepower 2-litre engines seem to be pretty efficient for some reason. Like my Cupra's efficient, Golf R's are pretty efficient. Even the A35 is pretty efficient, but this is madness. It's still going up as well, 49.5, and that was sitting from 60 to 70 miles per hour. So if you need to munch a lot of miles, this is a pretty good engine to go for if you're looking at an E-Class coupe. It's got the performance, missing a bit of sound, but undeniably very efficient. And surprisingly, Mercedes weren't lying about their economy figures. I'm very impressed with that. Still going up 49.5. So yeah, no complaints from me there. That is a very impressive figure indeed. I mean, it beats the diesel E350 really. That's madness. Anyway, let's get back into Sports Plus, or individual this time I think, and have some proper fun. Right, we're in individual now, so I've got the gearbox in manual, but everything else is in Sports Plus. Let's see what this E350 is like. It's got so much grunt for a little 2-litre engine. Whee! And because there's not a lot of weight over the nose, you can chuck it about quite a lot actually. Like foot down. Whee! And this is a quick car. You know, it's on the upshifts as well. You get these little like burbles. It's quite hard to detect on camera, but you can hear it through your ears, and it sounds pretty good actually. This is the thing, even though this is not an AMG, you've still got that really good, really sorted E-Class chassis underneath, and you can feel it. Oh yes. Front end tightens its line very nicely, and you actually get quite a lot of feel through your bum. You can feel what the car's doing, and it's nice. It's really nice. Like coming around corners like that, you can feel the rear squiggle a bit, and it gives you a lot more feedback than you're expecting. The suspension's quite soft, but it still controls its mass well. It doesn't scare you, you know, it doesn't chuck you out the corner. Just test the brakes, 100-yard marker. Oh yes, very solid brakes. Mercedes are always pretty good at brakes. Even on their non-AMG cars, they're always pretty good. ESC holding me back just a little bit there. But it's a fun car to drive. It genuinely is. For a big car like this, it is fun. Now, it weighs 1,650 kilos, which fundamentally is quite heavy, but for this class of car, that's not that heavy anymore. You know, the new BMW 3 Series, like if you're looking at an M3, that's a pretty heavy car. So something like this, being 1,650 kilos, and it's a class above, is pretty decent, really. I think the lack of the weight over the nose really helps. It just allows you to like really feel what's going on the front end. So if you are looking for a sort of barge, comfy, mile muncher kind of car that's a little bit nippy, like hot hatch-esque, because it's got a 2-litre engine, then this could be the car for you, actually. And it does remind me of kind of like a hot hatch. It hides its size very well, and because it's fundamentally not that heavy for this class of car, it feels quite nippy. You know, it doesn't feel like a brute, it feels like quite sharp, and it's quite surprising. Nice though. Alright, let's now take her down her favourite little B road. Give it some. Even though it's a bit wide, it's a bit long, it just allows you to control it so well. And boy, is it quick, I have to say. It is hot hatch fast. Oh, what a weapon. And just like coming out of fast corners like this, once this lorry gets out of the way, gotta be careful with him. You just plant your foot and it is off. Nearly up to 60 like that. Feels quicker than 5.5 seconds to me. Alright, there's no one behind us. Let's give it a sort of launch. Just plant my foot. Look at that. Third gear is really good actually. It picks up speed very well there. And it just tightens its line very well. Nearly killed a bird then. Oh, it is quick though. Amazing what they can do with a 2-litre engine in a big car like this. And the thing is, even though it's softly sprung, I'm not having to like wait for it to sort of control itself. Weird. I usually get that. If it's soft, it's usually just kind of like slow to react to anything, but it's not. It can be fairly aggressive with it, surprisingly. Right, one last time. That you can just slam it into a corner. The steering rack is quite fast as well, so it's pretty easy to judge where the car is. Oh no, we got traffic. Oh dear. ESC held me back a lot then. Even in Sports Plus, it sort of lets you have a little bit of fun, but it's like, wait, what are you doing? This is an E-Class coupe. This is not a sports car. But overall, I'm very impressed. I mean, it's just a further improvement over the E300. It just gives you that extra bit of kick that you don't necessarily need, to be honest, but it's very much welcome. I mean, it's a genuinely fast car. You know, this is hot hatch fast. Comfortable, quiet, yet zippy. Not two things that usually go together. They'd usually clash, you know, a sort of hot hatch-esque drivetrain in a pretty big luxury coupe. Didn't think they would work together well, but because this car isn't actually that heavy for its size, it works. Right, time for a conclusion. I think the words zippy or fruity are actually the perfect words to describe this car, which again is not something you would associate with a big barge like this. But do you know what? I actually quite like it. The drivetrain makes it feel sharper and more agile than it actually is, giving you the impression you're driving something smaller, but chuck it into comfort and the way it perceivably delivers its torque is indifferent from a much larger engine. It's almost the best of both worlds, really. The only thing I'm missing is that low-down grumble of a V6, but overall it's actually something I would consider, which I have to be honest is not what I thought I was going to say after reviewing this thing. Anyway, as usual, if you like the video, give it a like, and why not subscribe, as not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.